On the monthly time frame on dollar index, you can see the solid bearish engulfing candle on the monthly time frame. So what does that tell you? Next month I'll be expecting this continuous drop until we come into the 102.152 area. All right, so like I said last week, for all I care, this could be a double bottom forming on the dollar index. So it could be a double bottom for us to continue pushing higher. However, like I said last week, if price creates a new lower low around here, which should be obviously lower than this, then we are in a full scale downtrend. But for now, overall, on the monthly time frame, dollar index is still super bullish, creating this new higher high here, which is obviously higher than these areas. Then came back for a pullback, and before this drop, I was actually expecting dollar index to continue pushing to the upside, but there are no guarantees in price, right? Price is always dynamic, so we need to readjust our trading based on what price is printing in the market. So that's my view on the monthly time frame. Let's check out the weekly time frame. Just like I mentioned last week, I'll be expecting price to continue dropping until we come into this trend line for a third touch. All right, because obviously we have the first touch here, the second touch here, so we could see something like this. I'm sorry about that. We could see something like this, a third touch, then before we continue pushing higher. But if we take out that trend line and this whole zone completely, right, then I'll be expecting for price to continue falling downwards, especially if we are able to take out this area here. So especially if we're able to take out that area, creating a new lower low, then guys, price is going to fall until we come to these lows here on the weekly time frame, and that is a huge move, right? But for now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm expecting for price to come into this trend line. Then when we get there, we see what happens next. All right, and that trend line area is between 102.152 and 101.556. That is the weekly time frame outlook. Let's check out the daily time frame. Pretty much like the weekly time frame outlook. I remembered last week I called your attention to the fact that price could come into this area, then give us a pullback before we continue dropping downward. Actually, price didn't come into that exact area, but at least it came close before we got the pullback on the daily time frame, and now we look set to continue falling to the downside. So like I said on the previous time frames, I'm expecting to see price drop into these areas here. Then let's go to the 4-hour time frame. You know how I like to take things systematically from the higher time frame all the way to the lower time frame. So last 2 weeks or so, I sent out this chart on the Telegram channel where price was around here at the time. So I was like, okay, cool, I would like to see price pull back into the 0.5 fib level, which also aligns with these multiple historic torches, and then from there I would like to see price fall to the downside, and that was exactly what price did. Price has been falling ever since. You can see the screenshot on your screen right now. So price has been, since price tapped into that 0.5 fib level, price has been falling down to the downside, right? I remember calling your attention to the fact that we have a double top here, and price may most likely come back for a pullback here before we continue falling to the downside. If you doubt me, here's the video. I would like to see a pullback into this neckline, right? This neckline. I'll be expecting this to see a pullback into that zone before we continue lower. So welcome back to the video. You can see that price played out exactly the way I said it's going to play out. So going into next week, I'll still be expecting that continuous drop to the downside. However, you know how I like to, if you've been watching me for quite some time, I like to think in probabilities, right? So let's say price, for whatever reason, next week opens and fails to continue pushing to the downside, and let's say price starts pushing back up, then this trend line is going to be my termination point. Now, what I mean by termination point is I'd like to see price take out that trend line, break back above this zones here, which is between 104.312 and 103.807. So I would like to see price break back above that zone and above this 4-hour trend line, right? So I'd like to see price break back above it. Then I'll wait for retests before I'll continue buying to the upside. All right. So, but I really don't see that happening. That's the probability, right? But I really don't see that happening because for now, judging by the size of the monthly candlestick and the size of, or let me say the sizes of the weekly candlesticks, then guys, I am more bearish than bullish. I'm 70% bearish, 30% bullish, right? Or let me even say 20% bullish, right? 80 for sales, 24. But we need to leave that probability for bullish there because price is dynamic, and if for next week we start going bullish before I start buying, that is what I would like to see. But for next week, I'm more bearish than bullish. All right, so my targets for the bearish scenario still remains between 102.152 and 101.556. So no matter the strategy you trade, I always see people come to me, they will be like, okay, what is your strategy? What's the strategy you taught in your course, right? I like giving them the answer that the strategy in my course or my mentorship program, whatever, is on how to make money in the Forex markets. The market doesn't care about your strategy. Strategies are just there to help you make a profit. That is, if you're even good at that strategy, right? So whether you're trading SMCs or ICT, or fair value gap, FVG, ABG, AZZ, whatever, BBB 111, I don't care. Are you making money? That's all that is important. So it doesn't matter what strategy you trade, whether you're a price action trader or an indicator based trader. Are you making money? Because that's the bottom line of Forex trading. Are you making money? All right. So don't be soaked into that idea that SMC is the only one that makes money. Trend lines, head and shoulders pattern are the only ones that make money. Indicator based trader doesn't make money. Stop thinking like that. You are going to keep being a losing trader. All right, so get out of that mindset. Open up your mind, guys. Focus on how do you make money in this market instead of sticking to one narrative that this is the best or that is the best, blah blah blah. So now that we've seen what is happening on the dollar index, let's go check out some of the dollar pairs and what we should be expecting on them next week. So for this week, I'll be starting with GBPUSD. So GBPUSD, and let's check out the weekly time frame, or let's first of all also check out the monthly time frame, right? I told you that overall on the bigger time frames, GBPUSD is super bearish, right? But of course, on the lower time frames, it's bullish, and of course, you should be buying, right? Especially if you're a day trader. So, yep, I was like, okay, for all I care, price may be wanting to create a double top chart pattern with the second top retesting this trend line, right? We have one touch, we have two touches rather, and then maybe the second top of this on this monthly time frame is just trying to like tap into this trend line for the third touch and fall to the downside, right? So even if that is the plan, I mean, we should take advantage of the buys at least until we come into that trend line, because looking at this monthly time frame candlestick on GBPUSD, price is super bullish. I mean, price is bouncing off this region here that has been tested multiple times, right? 1, 2, 3, right? Even we can call this 4, and then this is the fifth touch, and you can see the sharp rejection. So last week I told you that I'll be expecting a continuous push to the upside, which was exactly what we got, as you can see on this weekly time frame right here. So last week I told you we were going to get a bullish candle for this week, and that was exactly what we got. And my initial target is this pink zone here, right? Or the 0.6 fib level, right? So we still have space to the upside. I mean, if you trade on the lower time frame, we still have space to the upside. So last week also price was trading around here, if I'm correct, right? Around here or here. Anyways, price was trading around here last week, and I said I will be expecting a continuous push to the upside at least until we come into this pink zone, and we are this close to that pink zone. So I don't know how tricky next week is going to be, which is I'm expecting it to be a tricky week ahead, but at least we still have buying opportunities at least until we come into that pink zone. That pink zone is between the 1.26845 and the 1.26329 areas, right? So those are the pink zones. So I'll be like expecting to see price come into those pink zones. If we break above it, then we'll continue trading higher, all right? But there's every probability that we could bounce off that zone. I mean, if there's a ceiling, consider resistance, because this pink zone is a resistance, right? So resistance, I see resistance as a ceiling, right? Let's say there's a concrete ceiling right above you. Are you just going to jump into that ceiling? You don't want to do that, because you are going to end up injuring your head, right? So consider resistance as ceilings, right above you. You don't want to jump through it, because you are going to, like I said earlier, you're going to end up um injuring yourself, and you don't want that, right? So in trading, that same thing applies. Yes, in trading, every now and then price blasts through ceilings, right, at some point, but at least you need to like protect yourself by not being shocked by the impact of that resistance, which is that ceiling in the market, right? So it's, for me, I prefer like taking profit. Let's say I've been buying all the way from the bottom, so I like taking profit at those ceilings, which are known as the resistance in the market, right? So now I want to wait. So when I see price take out that ceiling, then I'll wait for a retest back to that zone, then I'll before continue buying higher. It makes more sense trading that way. I mean, I can't see an obvious resistance above me and then I'll still be buying into that resistance. It doesn't make sense. So although I don't trade GBP USD for now, but for me, I could like trade on the 15 minutes time frame, at least until we come into that pink zone. So if you're trading GBP USD, let's go to the lower time frames and see what will look like, starting with the 4-hour time frame. Last week, I remember vividly, price was trading around here, right around here, and I specifically called your attention to the fact that I'll be expecting price to continue pushing higher. If you doubt me, here's the video. We've closed above this 4-hour region here, creating a double bottom in the process, and now we've taken out the neckline, right? So next week I'll just be expecting a mini pullback before we continue higher, at least until we come into the 1.25987 area. So welcome back to the video. You can see that obviously price played out exactly the way I expected, right? And we are still on course to coming into that pink zone, which, like I said earlier, is between 1.26811 and 1.26318, right? So I'll be expecting a rejection from there, maybe to get a pullback, maybe like this back into here before we'll continue higher, or maybe we'll continue lower, right? So I'll be expecting price to stall at this pink zone. That is why I said next week may be a tricky week for us, but of course we still have to be bullish minded, right? At least until we come into this pink zone. So let's check out the 15 minutes time frame. If you are not already in this trade, then usually I would like to see a pullback. Into here. All right, that's what I would like to see. I would like to see a pullback. It doesn't make sense buying at the top here. I mean, where do you put your stop loss? Except maybe you have a zone. If you trade on the 1 minute and you have a good zone on the 1 minute time frame, which I don't even advise trading on, right? I don't trade the 1 minute zone and time frame, or even the 5 minutes time frame. I mostly trade for my day and prop firm trading. I trade the 15 minutes time frame, 30 minutes, 1 hour time frames. That's my lowest time frames, right? If you're not already in this trade, then I would like to see price come to this 15 minute zone before we continue back up into that pink zone. You know, this is the 15 minutes time frame, so these two zones are those pink zones we spotted on the higher time frames, right? So I would like to see a pullback into this zone, right? Because this zone makes sense. It has been tested multiple times looking left, right? So it only makes sense for price to come back into that zone before we continue pushing higher, right? And if that happens, we can get a decent 2-to-1 or even 3-to-1 reward to risk ratio. I don't use pending orders anyways. There are specific stuffs I look for when price comes into this zone. So if I see those stuffs, like I said earlier, I don't trade GBP USD lately. I trade mostly Euro USD lately, right? But if I was to trade GBP USD, this is how I'm going to trade it. I'll look for a good 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio around here. If I get, that's my specific entry model, which Those on the mentorship program, we already talk about this over and over again. All right, so if you want to join us, just visit letstrade10x.com or check the description of this video down below and just follow that link to make your purchase. All right, but let's get back to the video. So that's my outlook on GBP USD in a nutshell. Now next on my list is Euro USD. Euro USD, let's also look at the monthly time frame. So the monthly time frame on Euro USD is kind of almost the same with GBP USD, right? Price came into these areas that has been tested multiple times historically, and you can see the massive rejection from that zone, right? So price has been bullish so far this month. I mean, after spotting these dodgy candles, and I'm also like, you remember what I said on the GBP USD pair, where I said, okay, for all I care, price may be creating double top here before we continue falling to the downside. All right, but if you're on the lower time frame, of course, you know you should be buying for now until there's a change in trend somewhere, right? Let's go to the weekly time frame. So on the weekly time frame, obviously we are still in a downtrend. I mean, if you go by market structure, price created a new lower low here. So until we create a new higher high before we could say, okay, we are in a bullish trend on the weekly time frame. So for now, we are still kind of bearish. All right, and I'm concerned about this particular weekly candlestick with which we closed for last week. Is too small, right? So that could be maybe price planning on falling next week. All right, but let's go to the daily time frame so that we can see things clearly, because even if price is going to fall, it's not just going to fall sharply, right? So could just be a pullback for us to continue bullish again and all of that. So I specifically called your attention to the fact that price could tap into the 0.618 area, then we could stall there, maybe price falling down to the downside before maybe we'll go back up again, and that was exactly what happened. However, I'm still not in a rush to buy Euro USD. Why? Because price has tested these zones multiple times historically, and even last week we saw another rejection from that zone, right? So price is at a strong resistance level at the moment, and also there is a 0.618 Fibonacci retracement level at that zone, right? So for next week, I would like to see price, if price is committed to pushing higher, I want to see a clean break above that zone first of all. Then when I spot that clean break above that zone, then I can now go to the lower time frames, waiting for price to pull back into this area, right? Then I'll be looking for that my specific entry reasons to now start buying from this exact zone here. I hope you get the point, because judging by the way the nature of the monthly time frame candlestick, then next week and probably going into next month, I'll be expecting at least continuous push to the upside. Are we going to come all the way to the upside here? Yes, that is a possibility, but I don't care whether we'll come there or not. Even if we come here before price starts stalling or whatever, I just want to capitalize on that move, right? At least get some couple of 2-to-1s, 3-to-1s before we come into that zone and make money, right? I don't want to be right or wrong about the direction of the market. I'd rather be right on my execution. You get the point. So for me, I would like to see a higher high created here, then a pullback into the zone, then I'll scale to the lower time frames, like probably the 15 minutes time frame, and look for buying opportunities from here to capitalize on, to push price to the upside. So Euro USD for next week, actually, regardless of this resistance, I'm still more bullish than bearish. But if I see a sharp, maybe daily and bearish engulfing candlestick from this zone, then that could be my cue that probably price wants to now pull back into this area that has also been tested multiple times historically, right? Pull back into this area before we continue higher. Remember, because of the size of the monthly time frame, I'll still be expecting continuous push to the upside even next month. So on the 4-hour time frame, nothing much, but like I said, I'll be expecting two things. Like on this 4-hour time frame, actually I'll be expecting two things. So for a bullish continuation next week, let's say price opens next week and keeps pushing to the downside, then I would like to see price come down for the third touch of this trend line, which has been tested at least one and twice historically, right? So come back into this zone, then my target on the 4-hour time frame will be 1.10419. So if price continues lower and we get a rejection from the third touch of this trend line, or at the third touch of this trend line, then I'll buy from that trend line until we come into that destination above here. Or alternatively, if we fail to come into this trend line, then I would like to see this high taken out to show me commitment, that price is committed to pushing higher, right? So I'd like to see that zone taken out, then a pullback, then I'll buy, and that seems target above remains my target. I hope that makes sense. So Euro USD for next week, I am more bullish than bearish. Then on USD CHF, last week I called your attention to the fact that I would like to see price continue pushing lower. Sorry, So I called your attention to the fact that I would like to see price continue lower, at least until we come into 0.87863 area. However, price moved sideways for the best part of last week until Friday, that because this is the daily time frame, right? So these candlesticks here represent daily price action. So until Friday, before we now saw a massive bearish engulfing candle to the downside, right? But for the best part of last week, price basically just moved sideways. So if we go to the lower time frames, that sideways movement will simply be a ranging market, right? Let's first of all go to the 4-hour time frame. You could see that yes, we ranged sideways before creating a new lower low, which is obviously lower than this low. So from this 4-hour time frame now, I'm going to jump all the way down to the 15 minutes time frame, right? So remember, my target remains these zones around here, right? So let me just use 0.87774 as my final target. So on this 15 minutes time frame, you could spot the range. Price bounced up, bounced down, bounced up, bounced down, bounced up, bounced down, and all of that, right? So we eventually took out that range, right? You can see that we created a new lower low. So for next week, I will still be expecting that continuous drop from this zone to the downside. All right, so this is my outlook on USDCHF for next week. And should we look at US oil? US oil looks complicated right now. All right, so but we'll think in probability, so that if you trade US oil, you will know what to expect next week. Now, why do I say it's tricky? I mean, the US oil has been glued to this zone historically, right? It just loves this zone, just loves this particular zone, right? So both ways, whether as support and resistance, price has been bouncing off those zones, hugging those zones, right? So now we have to be mindful of those zones, because that is exactly where we are trading at the moment. Of course, we've seen 2 months of bearish price action so far, but let's check out the weekly time frame. On the weekly time frame, price created a new higher high here, and I won't even come here to lie to you. When price created this higher high, I was expecting price to continue pushing higher until we come into this zone. If you go back to like 4 weeks ago, or sorry, is it 4 weeks ago? About 5, 6, 7 weeks ago, right? So you will see those videos where I was like, price is going to push up to this area here. So you can, like I said, if you can be right 100% of the time in the market, then you'll be a multi-millionaire by now. You'll be a multi-millionaire because you are right 100% of the time. So since we can't be right 100% of the time, you have to accept that. All right, there's no shame in accepting that. So I won't come here and tell you that I have a 100% win rate, and don't believe anyone that tells you that, because even the banks lose money, not to talk of one retail trader with a couple of millions. I don't even want to say couple of thousands, right? Let me give it to you, couple of millions in your account. So someone that manages trillions of dollars is still losing in the market sometimes. I'm talking about the banks, right? The big banks, the institutions, the government. Sometimes the government even still loses money from time to time. And you, a retail trader with just a few millions in your trading account, you are telling me that you have a 100% win rate if I sand you. All right, so don't believe people that come there to lie to you. So yes, I was expecting that continuous push, but obviously I was wrong. I mean, price continued falling to the downside, and for the past few weeks, I also recall your attention to the fact that, oh, now we are going down. I mean, price is not committed to going higher anymore, right? Especially when we broke below this zone, creating this new lower low here, which is obviously lower than this, right? So if you watch that video, I even called the trade live on that particular video, and price fell to the downside. Now let's go to the 4-hour time frame. So this is the video I was talking about. I called that trade live, and price played out perfectly. Our stop loss was above here. But now something interesting is happening, because let's forget about the past. Let's move ahead. Right now, let's go back to the daily time frame. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So if you watch like last 2 weeks or last 3 weeks, if I'm right, if I'm correct, I was like, price was still trading around here, and I was like, if price breaks below here, I would like to see a retest of that zone before we continue falling. But price manipulated his way back above that trend line, and now again we are back below the trend line. So if you are wondering where the trend line is coming from, I already showed you on the weekly time frame, right? But let me still show you right here on the daily time frame. From this bottom here, right, massive rejection, another rejection, and now price is around that zone. So now if price breaks below that trend line, I am actually expecting price to fall to the downside. All right, so price broke below it, went back above it, now we are back below that trend line, right? So now we could easily also still reject this zone and start pushing higher. Remember that price is trading on a strong support on the monthly time frame. Let's go back to that monthly time frame so that I'll show you. Price is trading on a strong support on that monthly time frame. So yes, price could easily just bounce off that zone. All right, so that's why we need to be patient. That's why we need to think in probabilities. Now let's go to the 4-hour time frame. So on the 4-hour time frame, now I have this trend line above and below here. So it's more like a triangle, right? It's more like a triangle, right? So I have this trend line above and this trend line below. So now I'm expecting two things. So number one, if price is committed to going higher, then it has to take out this trend line. So if it takes out this trend line, it must have created a new higher high, right? Then I'll wait for any pullback to keep pushing price at least above until we come into this zone. But which is what I'll most likely want to see, which is this but right now, I would like to see price take out this trend line below and this entire zone, right? And if possible, give us a lower low, right? Breaking below this previous low created here. So if I see this, then I'll be expecting a retest of this zone, then I'll keep selling to the downside. These are the two scenarios I'm looking out for on the USOIL. All right, so permit me to stop here, guys. The other pairs, because I would have loved to talk about some JPY pairs, but just like we did on the Telegram channel last week, we held a live stream session. So to be a part of that live stream session, click the link in the description of this video down below. I'm talking about the Telegram link, so that you can join today's live stream session. I'll be analyzing some pairs that I didn't talk about on this particular video. All right, so you can also talk to me live, you could ask me any question and all of those good stuffs. Then if you want to learn how to do this, if you want to learn how to do your analysis and how to execute trades using a rule-based strategy, taking out all the guesswork, taking out all the emotions, right? So you want to get our mentorship programs, this is the link on your screen, and the link is also in the description of this video down below. So if you made it to the end of this video, I really appreciate that, and I wish you a successful trading week, and I'll see you in the next video.